Okay. Marie, we are overloading poor Jake with episodes this month.
And it's his birthday.
Happy birthday, Jake!
It's his birthday. Like it's your birthday.
Happy birthday, Jake.
Like it's your birthday. How old do you think Jake is?
Jake is 82.
Jake's 82. He's like a very spry 82.
I am pretty sure Jake is younger than me.
Aw.
Which puts him below a 28. Am I going to be 28?
Oh.
No, I am. Am I 28? Holy shit.
Whew. I don't know. All I know is, man, y'all old. Jake, I am sorry, Jake. I am sorry that but look at it this way. You've evaded the cold maw of death.
Yeah.
That's icy grip for one more year. Here's to ya.
Yeah, good stuff, Jake. Congrats.
Good stuff.
Good stuff on not dying so
good stuff
far.
on not dying. I hope you had cake.
Yeah. Okay. Marie, we're doing this is a bonus episode.
Bonus.
We're bonusing it up right now.
We're totally bonusing it up.
Tell the people what we're bonusing on.
I'll tell you what we're bonusing on, my friends. So as of late, a UFO, what would you call it? Is it a company? No, it's not. It's a UFO research and I'm so used to saying research and development. It is a semi-think tank. It's not even that. It's a company invested in paranormal activity and UFOs called To the Stars Academy, has come under some scrutiny as of late with, I read about it on Motherboard, about their SEC filing that disclosed financial information about the fiscal solvency of their company.
Yeah.
And so we figured, one, we neither Cogs nor I are shareholders in said company.
No.
Correct? So we have to disclose if we are. We are not.
We are not.
But we were going to walk through, because there's a lot of rumblings and a lot of back and forth about what this means and is it bad? Is it good? Is it fraud? Is it fake? Things like that. And we're not going to necessarily take a stance about said company, but, which forgive me, I still need to get a better what they do, because they do interesting stuff that we're going to talk about. But yes, we're gonna walk through the filing and kind of break it down.
Yeah, we sure are. So, Jake, happy birthday, roll of tape.
Scientist Podcast. This week's episode, To the Stars Academy.
Okay, good. So let's get into it. Okay, so all right. So To the Stars Academy. This is from their website, tothestarsacademy.com. Quote, To the Stars Academy strives to be a powerful vehicle for change by creating a consortium among science, aerospace, and entertainment that will work collectively to allow gifted researchers the freedom to explore exotic science and technologies with the infrastructure and resources to rapidly transition them to products that can change the world. And then they have kind of three categories here that they are particularly interested in so far. Under science here, they have consciousness, engineering, space-time, brain-computer interface, telepathy, analysis center for unidentified aerial phenomena, which is their way of saying UFOs without seeming silly. Aerospace, they have electrogravitic propulsion, which means a warp drive, and beamed energy launch systems, which also means a warp drive, but specifically a warp drive that utilizes zero-point energy. It's actually also electrogravitic propulsion. If you look up electrogravitics, you will find that it is a very, very strong field of pseudoscience. And then you have entertainment, which is inspirational storytelling, feature film, scripted series, publishing, and novelties, which, who knows? Right. Now, completely full disclosure here. When I was with MUFON, I reached out to the folks at To the Stars Academy. A member of their board actually, I believe a member of their board actually wanted to work with us in some capacity at least, and then decided that that wasn't something that they wanted to do, or it never got back to me really. So interesting. Could be, right?
So
here's the thing.
Mhm.
They are interesting because they are in some way connected to MUFON. Just because they're in the same world, right? But they are connected, right? MUFON is kind of working with them by just kind of being in the same area, being interested, being connected in some ways.
Yeah, I have an analogy. It's like Christie's and Sotheby's. I hate to use like a very colonial type of highfalutin,
seriously,
totally polar opposite. But if you have two huge players in a very small market, they both know and share people that share information, scientists, board members, membership. They have a huge amount of overlap.
Yeah. So I initially reached out to them hoping that I could provide some material science info for them, because long before the Atom Project was ever announced, that was kind of the rumblings that were going on, that they'd be analyzing materials and things. However, to date, they have seemed to be quite resistant to any outside help or information coming in or anything like that. They've been a very closed group since the beginning, which makes sense in some ways, right? But
well, you could be CIA.
I could definitely be CIA. Now,
I haven't ruled it out, dear listeners, by the way.
She hasn't. Now,
I haven't, man.
Here's the interesting thing, right? So their team is Tom DeLonge, who is the you likely know as the one of the founding members of Blink-182, a band that I absolutely loved as a kid, still listen to all the time because I am that kind of adult, and who has had a lifelong fascination and belief that aliens exist, basically, to quote one of the names of one of his songs. You then have Jim Semovin, who is worked at the CIA for some time, quite a long time. Dr. Hal Puthoff, who you would, if you know him from anything, you would know him from a series of interesting experiments with Uri Geller on the ability to do remote viewing that have since come to be discredited significantly. So kind of been part of this world of pseudo-scientific analysis, and kind of, unfortunately, kind of fraud in some ways since their beginnings. You then have Steve Justice, the head of their aerospace division, who worked at the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. Luis Elizondo, who you likely know from CNN. He's the guy that comes on and says he was in charge of the ATIP program. Christopher Mellon, who is a private equity investor, political commentator.
Really quickly, these are not all people on their board, though.
No, these are just people kind of within their area.
Right. So really quickly, since we're talking about the finances, be very clear that these are not people that have a vested stake in the success of the company. They are people that they've hired to consult or to contribute, but there's only 5 or so members that sit on the board.
Yeah, so these are people that they have on their team, quote unquote, but who are not members of the board necessarily. So Chris Mellon was a deputy assistant secretary for defense during the Clinton and Bush administrations. Dr. Paul Rapp, who is a professor of military and emergency medicine.
Oh, snap. I've heard of him, actually.
Yep.
He's like the one person I have heard of.
Yep. So he's very interesting. You have Dr. Norm Kahn, who is their national security and program management consultant. You have Dr. Colm Kelleher, who you will likely know from the Skinwalker investigation. He is also, I believe, still a board member or a head member of Robert Bigelow's organization.
Something cold just walked into the room.
Dr. Adele Gilpin, who is, I believe, also worked with NIDS with the Skinwalker team. And then, they did, in fact, it looks like they did, in fact, lose one of their scientists, a bioengineer.
Yes. Recently.
Very recently. So that's something that hasn't really been talked about too much out on the podcast circuit, but that's very interesting. Now, here's the thing. When this was first announced, Marie, I don't know about you, but I was extremely excited. Like, I was straight up like, this is awesome. I was like, someone is going to give money to do the kind of research that has to happen here, to really do this stuff the right way, whatever. And then as their team started to form, I became increasingly concerned that the science and scientists on the board are extremely light in terms of their academic backgrounds and credentials, to say the least, right? Especially their the head of their science division is, I think, an unfortunate choice. And on top of that as well, these are all scientists who have been given money in the past to do this kind of research and have given nothing. Right? Besides the Skinwalker Ranch being bought from the family that owned it before.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think so. So I know that you were excited. I really didn't have much skin in the game on the UFO, and on any of this exactly. But how I looked at it was like, oh, okay, it's a guy with some money. He's young. He's probably got some good influence with other people that have money, that their mind has not gelled to be against this type of thing. So that's always good. Like, if you've got somebody who's sort of, I hate to say, quote unquote, a disruptor, but somebody who's vested and is bringing people together and has an additional source of income that has already been established, that's good. That's a good thing to start with. So I had relatively high hopes for it.
Yeah,
like you.
It's interesting because I think that there's a lot of it seemed like there could be a lot of good that came from this. Now, probably what they're best known for is kind of some of their media appearances. So Elizondo has been kind of prolific out there for a little while, at least, doing interviews and things. DeLong was on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? But since then, they have become extremely close-lipped. They have not given interviews, really. They've tried to kind of keep a arm's length away from the kind of, I guess, amateur research community that is the UFO community. And then on top of that, too, they have tried very hard, I think, to put out stuff that they think will... So, okay, so here's the problem. When they started
Lay it on, my Slim. I'm ready.
When they started this group, a lot of their funding came from Mr. DeLong himself.
Yes.
And then some came from private investors.
Venture capitalists,
right? Yeah. And people that were interested in whatever, right? And so, but then they decided, well, actually what we'll do is we will have what's called a type A plus crowdfunding campaign. Now, what that means is then their financial doings have to be disclosed to the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Well, so they didn't crowdfunding is different.
It's not right. It's not crowdfunding. It's basically a way to do almost like an initial public offering where non-certified investors can invest. So the public can invest.
Which is common, right? So they realize they need more money. They talk to venture capitalists. They get funding from venture capitalists, but then they also say, we're going to open up, like you said, we're going to go for option A, and we're going to set a stock price for this much, and we're going to allow whoever to buy it. Right. Which can be, I mean, again, it can be just the board. It can be the entirety of the company plus whoever is researching, consulting, whoever, or even farther reaching. Right. So, but the idea with that is stock. How I look at it is stock's not exactly. It's not going to that's not what's going to drive the revenue. Right. Like that type of initial A offering is more to establish
a base of operational
legitimacy.
Funding.
Like they're going to. That's sort of the position to say to the market and to say back to the venture capitalists that, hey, you know what, we're legit. We have people that have interest in investing in this company. And that's a huge thing to do. That's hard. And we should also say, like, I would say that a lot of companies don't even make it that far. Like, they'll burn through capital, or they'll burn through venture capital, but they can't get an offering, or they can't make a go of it. So it's also very regulated and very, very complex.
Yeah. So what that generally amounted to then was around 2,500 something people decided to invest. The minimum investment was $200. So you needed to give at least $200 to become a part of that group.
A shareholder.
Yeah.
You are now a shareholder.
They were selling their shares at $5 a unit. Okay. In their Class A offering of common stock. And you can find this information on their website.
Yes.
Right? Now, in the risk factors portion here, this is what they put. They say...
You're jumping ahead.
So, this is it, right? They say, okay.
Good, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is essentially a brand new company. As a public benefit corporation, our decision-making includes more than profitability. The offering price has been arbitrarily set by the company, and the valuation is high. That's going to come into play later.
Yes.
Our costs may grow more quickly than our revenues, harming our business and profitability. That's just a normal kind of thing, right? We would be damaged by the death, incapacity, departure, or damage to the reputation of principal investor / key man Tom DeLonge, which probably why he's deleted so many of his Instagram posts. Aerospace and scientific research and development can be risky, and there are no guarantees that any of the projects we undertake will lead to a commercially viable product, especially when you are doing it with technology from the last decades ago.
So really quickly, that type of futures warning is not uncommon in any kind of industry. No, right?
Not
everybody
at all.
says even the most established companies like a GE, I can't even think of another company, just like a General Electrics, say we can't predict what the future market's going to do. We could be hit by lightning. There could be an alien invasion. So this is really the best effort that we can put forward based on the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, now
and
this is...
You get a risk assessment from that.
Now, this is what they say about this is the more detail on aerospace and scientific research and development can be risky, okay? Advanced aerospace technologies. The undefined and forward-looking nature of this project means that we may run into unanticipated barriers to implementation of the new research principles involved. Additionally, this type of research will require higher energy, which will need careful management and control. Okay, beamed energy propulsion launch systems.
So let me just, if I may, really quick. Sorry.
Just the scale of their
Cojones, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Exactly.
Awesome.
They're not even saying like, oh, none of this is real yet. They're saying like we might not be able to get for the beam energy launch system. They say one of their risks is unexpected bird strikes for their warp drive.
Well, yeah, that's so. I would say if you want something to benchmark that language against, right? Because if you're saying you're reading this and you're saying that they've got all of these caveats about what could affect this future technology, is look at companies that already have sort of a vested stake in this game that are publicly traded, like Boeing, Halliburton, give me somebody else. Something Raytheon, something big.
Lockheed Martin, NASA, the government,
NASA.
Like any of them.
But the government, so they're not going to, the government and NASA, because they are not publicly traded, like publicly traded companies, again, companies that ask you as an investor to buy their stock as an investment are mandated to disclose their financial information. So you can't be saying, oh my God, I've got this amazing beam technology and it's going to just, it's a portal and it's going to move you from here to there. Like you have to have a certain amount of disclosure when you're publicly traded. So and you will be fined, and you will be basically, it's the federal government. They actually keep pretty close tabs on this. So other companies that have this type of language also know how far and how much they can promise without, one, risking investment, right? Because you don't want to sound like you've just made stuff up or it's too crazy, but you also don't want to overpromise, right? And I think that when I read this statement, I feel like that's the balance that a small company like To the Stars Academy hasn't been able to get their hands around yet. Is that type of safety, right? That type of safety net.
And that's been the critique from the very beginning, right? We don't even have a good photo of a damn UFO yet, and they're talking about birds hitting their UFOs that they're going to reverse engineer.
Well, but that's out there. I'm teasing. I don't even.
It's crazy.
But you also so if I'm investing in this company, it's like, well, so what am I really buying? Like, let's pretend.
Wait. Let me wait. I want engineering the space-time metric. This technology is in the very early stages, Marie, and success depends on a yet-to-be-defined breakthrough in propulsion to enable traveling to the stars at near light speed. It's like when you were a kid and you were like, what would be cool? A giant fighting robot. And you wrote in crayon on a piece of paper, patent, giant fighting robot. Yeah, and you were just like, I did it. I got it. I made the patent. Right? Like, they are. I honestly, I would love to talk to an investment lawyer or an SEC lawyer or something, because I honestly can't understand how they were allowed to even sell shares with this. You know what I mean? Like if we started a company,
because of the money they had, but if you,
that's what I'm saying. Like if we started
capital, go ahead.
If we started a company that we were like, we are going to develop a zero entropy perpetual motion machine.
Ooh,
okay,
sweet.
something that is impossible. But
it's got to be small.
Literally,
it's gotta be like the size of a coffee maker.
That's by definition impossible in thermodynamics, right?
So it can be this. What you're telling me is it can be the size of a coffee maker,
right? Because it can't exist in nature. If we decided to start that company and sell stock. Would we just be allowed to, even though the thing we're selling isn't real?
So, but here's the thing. Here's the thing with that is they are not necessarily selling that. They are selling the idea of that. But what they are truly selling is their entertainment. Are you okay? Was that your eyeball popping from your head?
That was my seltzer bottle popping.
Well, for a minute there, I was like, we just lost Chris, people.
No, and that's
it was a good run.
That was the sound of my eyeball shooting out of my head with anger.
Just exploding.
No, it's true. It's true. The point you're getting at is 100% true.
Because it's like, I think, again, like if you look at Lockheed Martin and what they say about the things they can't disclose, they don't say anything. Like it's very tight. Like they don't disclose anything that is going to put them into any sort of financial jeopardy or any type of risk with the government, the Security Exchange Commission. But the other thing is like you can't look squeamish to your investors. So you have to have something that you are driving revenue from. Right? That's why you are in business. Is you are. I mean, I think that if I am glass half filling for To the Stars, I would say the idea is that they're bringing people together and they're trying to build momentum to sort of have more transparency. But in the meantime, they're also going to be putting out entertainment to support that. So I don't know. I feel like.
Well, and so that's a very important point. So they do say here, this is again part of their initial offering. They say our entertainment division, which is the only part of the company currently producing revenues. They mentioned it a couple times. They say it has a concentration risk from a third-party provider because they get revenue and royalties from sales of music. Basically, I'm assuming through sales. I don't know what kind of music, but I mean, obviously,
So what do
something
they
that Tom
sell?
DeLonge
If
is
you're
making.
on their website, but if you're on your website, I mean, I did see that their company is tied to a few other like subdivisions.
So they are
that
so they are
entertainment.
they are
So what do
basically
they
a
do?
division. They are basically a division of Tom DeLonge's other companies. They actually have a requirement to pay $100,000 as a royalty guarantee to three of DeLonge's groups. So to Tom DeLonge himself, to Mr. Handsome LLC, and Good in Bed Music.
Which again,
Because I guess he probably named them back when he was in Blink-182. But so it's interesting. So they are required to pay at minimum $100,000 to those what's the word? To those three groups.
to those three subholdings. But the thing is that's not a lot of money. I mean, if you are investing, it's not. It's
No.
just sort of like a checkbox in a lot of ways. But
Sure. So now
yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So now here's kind of where it gets interesting, right? So
Portals, orbs. Lay it
so,
on me. I'm ready.
So okay, they have basically they have come up with this idea here that I think actually could be somewhat good if done correctly. Okay, which is to do basically to do a couple of different things. They do entertainment and then they do science, and that's basically what we try to do here, right? But it's basically the only way to
scrappy little group here.
It's the only way to sell the paranormal science in any kind of way. Okay. So here's the thing, right? So for their science plan is very light right now. I think that's clear by their team. They don't have a lot of scientists on board. Yeah. But then they have their entertainment division here. They have licensed brands, they have other things and everything else. These are some of the things they have going right now. Strange Times feature film. It's in development, being directed by Tom DeLonge. Poet Anderson franchise is it's a book that Tom DeLonge is writing with Suzanne Young. The Poet Anderson short film, again the same thing, and then the Strange Times record, which is going to be an album, I assume, released by DeLonge as well. So, primarily, their plan is quite focused on
him.
What's the word? Basically on Tom DeLonge, right?
Yeah.
On Tom DeLonge selling books and movies and music, right?
Not even selling movies. It's in development. That means nothing.
So it's
yeah.
It's interesting. Now,
well, so I think, yeah. So again, my background, I'm not a big UFO person, not very heavy with that, but like reviewing things from a financial standpoint, I do have some experience with, and I feel like even looking at this filing, they are disclosing a lot. It's almost there's more. I want to say there's more emotion in this document than I'm used to seeing as sort of disclosing information. And I will say, like, I would like for something like this to succeed. I would like for something to enter the mainstream that is charged with bringing more transparency and more interest to science in general, but then also to science that isn't necessarily easily explainable. I think that that's a good venture, but I think the problem is that I don't sense that anyone had a hand on the rudder of what a company should be doing with this.
No, well, no one has had any
and that's, I mean, it seems like they got a good idea with, like, again, just sorry to interrupt, but like with sort of the licensing and the third party and the entertainment stuff, it's like he's got a lot of experience with that from having, been brought up in it and having to deal with managers and lawyers and record companies and, media trying to rip you off and how do you safeguard yourself. But I also don't sense like if you have this huge idea, how do you actually make a company? How do you make a company work? And how do you make it last for more than a year? Which is hard.
It is hard. And listen, I mean, this is not an easy thing they tried to do, right? And I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll get turned around. But so here's the thing, just again, for people listening, because a lot of this info has been kind of, people just haven't really taken the time to read these documents, I think.
No.
The only directors of To the Stars Academy are Tom DeLonge, James Semivan, and Harold Pudoff.
They're the board.
Everyone else, all the big names that you've been hearing about that are out there, right? Elizondo, whatever, are consultants.
Yes.
Or contractors.
Yes.
The only full-time employees are Tom DeLonge and Carrie DeLonge and Lisa Clifford, who is their secretary. Their James Semivan, Harold Pudoff, and Louis Tomasino are contractors. Tomasino being their chief financial officer. Now, this is their disclosure of their finances in this document here. So the company is a business that has not yet generated profits and has sustained net losses of $422,000 and $322,000 during the years ended of December 31st, 2016 and 15, respectively. As of December 31st, 2016, the company has net operating loss carry forwards of approximately $515,000. That may be offset against future taxable income through 2035. To date, revenues have not been sufficient to fund operations. Thus, until we can generate sufficient cash flows to fund operations, we are dependent on raising additional capital through debt and or equity transactions. We've received one loan from R2 Dogs Incorporated, which is Tom DeLonge's company, one for $300,000 and one for $200,000.
Which isn't a lot. Like so far, everything you've said is relatively manageable.
Yeah, it is comically high for the UFO field.
Well, yes,
but you're right. But you're right.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, on April 26, 2017, we entered into a licensing agreement with Tom DeLonge and Mr. DeLonge's affiliated entities for the use of certain intellectual property rights in exchange for a royalty on gross sales ranging from 0.5 to 15%. So, basically books and things, right? That's where that $100,000 minimum royalty payment to Mr. DeLonge is from, because he has said he will not give royalties or compensation for his services during 2015 to 2016. Now, on April 27, 2017, Archive West Investments contributed 100% of the shares of To the Stars Inc. to Gravity Holdings, LLC. Basically, they have...
Who's Gravity Holdings?
It's another group. What's it?
They're a holding company owned by...
Gravity Holdings gave all of their... basically gave all their shares to the Stars.
Yes,
right?
But they're also Tom DeLonge.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It's just, that's him.
So in May 2017, we issued a total of 12,500,000 shares of Class A common stock and 5,400 shares of Class B common stock to Gravity Holdings LLC, Jim Sem I, which is Jim Semivan's company, and Harold Putoff, in exchange for a nominal cash payment and past and anticipated future efforts to support the company's business and objectives. Now, what does that mean in terms of real dollars, right? So we're talking 12,500,000 shares.
Yes.
Right?
Of a company that's not, of a company that again, if you look at what is their outcoming revenue, like what are they going to make coming up? Right.
Now, we said that shares were $5 a pop. Okay.
That's safe. I think that's a good,
Okay.
Even future.
So that is, what is this number here? 625,000,000. So, $62 million divided three ways by those three entities. Their plan, Marie, is that barring any bird strikes.
How do I get in on this? Sorry.
Their
UFO
company will make them $21 million each.
Well, so That's the plan. But and again, you're saying that equity transactions like stock are you're going to turn around and sell them. That's not, which is not how.
No, of course not.
Right. I mean, but now it's valued at. However, one thing I do want to point out that in looking at this whole thing, that did strike me as again, something that if I was giving counsel to them, I would say, I'm looking at sort of what the volatility is, your stock volatility rating. So your percentage of stock volatility. And volatility in the stock market is not necessarily a bad thing. If you want to short sell something, volatility is what you want because something that can go up and go down, you can make very quick money off of. However, volatility over the long term is not something that you want to encourage. And as a company, you don't want necessarily a high volatility percentage because that's saying that nobody knows what you're going to do. You could do really, really well, or you could crash and burn, right? So if let's pretend I'm a short market investor and I have an interest in this, I could come in right now and buy at the $5, knowing that there's this volatility rating, and then within the next 30 days sell, right? Or even like if it starts to go up because of press or whatever, or sell it short, or, there's a lot of different manipulations that you could put on a stock like this at this point.
Yeah.
Their volatility rating is 75%.
Jesus.
So it's sort of like, it's like I don't want to be fuzzy end of the lollipop here, man. Like I'm really seriously trying to I feel like it's difficult because it's hard to discern when you have the people that are on your board investing heavily in the company through LLCs to sort of prop it up in some ways, to give it that financial boost. It's difficult to understand how long that can last. You need fresh blood, right? You need to have people invest organically in something so you don't have to prop anything up. So you can actually start to run itself, or it can start to become more viable.
Well, what I think is fascinating here too, though, is that so based on their initial stock offering in that Type A method, they had a minimum of 200,000 shares that they were going to sell. That was their minimum value that they thought they could make. At $5 a share, that puts their minimum value of their company at $1 million, barring how much they themselves put in.
Yes,
that is how much of it they thought the public should own.
Yes.
Okay. At maximum, they said it would be it would be 10 million, yes. 10 million shares.
Yes.
So at maximum, they thought they could make on this initial offering $50 million.
So between 1 and 50 is an insane idea.
A tremendous amount of risk.
Way too much risk. Way too much flux. Way too much. Again, you don't need a bird strike to take you out.
And here's the thing, though, right? That means that, at least as far as I can understand it, if they were in these documents to say that they were hoping to offer about 1% to the public, right? Is what it appears to be, at least to me. And maybe I am reading these incorrectly, but that's about what it seems to be that they wanted the public to be able to buy of their company, right? That means that at minimum they thought this company was worth $100 million. Does that sound accurate to you? Does that sound like, yeah?
Well, and again, like $100 million is really nothing in sort of the stock market or in sort of like a publicly traded arena. It's like $100 million is even with venture capitalists, it's not a lot of money. I think the idea that the stock could be worth something and what is it worth is not irrelevant, but like it's almost secondary to sort of what is again, and like I tweeted about this earlier, but about debt versus accumulated deficit, right? So the two things are different. Debt is you are actually in debt. You are owing interest. You have that monkey on your back, as so many of us do. And I would look at like accumulated deficit is this is my sunk cost. I have put this much time, effort.
Okay, that makes sense.
Into this. Like I've got a lease. I've got all of this equipment. I've got a board that is now having salary, right? Like we have an espresso machine, whatever that is. That's sort of the cost, your operating cost. The two are different and one's worse than the other. Like you can have accumulated deficit for a company that is ramping up, and they're ramping up and they're coming to fruition on software or on something, and the revenue is going to start coming back. The point being though is you got to be selling something. You have to have some sort of revenue stream.
And based on these documents, they have been in debt for the last 4 years.
Right. And again, like huge companies can be in debt for years and years and years and years and years. It's not uncommon, but the problem being is those companies also have the word out to the market and to the street and to the Fed that, hey, so we know we're in debt. We know this looks bad. But hey, here's what we're going to sell. Here's what we have coming up. Here's how the revenue is going to come back around, and we're paying off debt, and we're doing X, Y, and Z, and this is the turnaround. And again, like it's kind of this weird balancing act. But if you are looking at a company that is completely a futures-based company, that is based on, and I do not mean this condescendingly, even though it sounds like it, it's based on pixie dust, which is not bad because you need to, like,
a lot of companies are. A lot of companies are. You know what I mean? Like startup companies that, you know, I have friends that did startup companies at a college.
Yeah.
That some of them did it, some of them never made it, right? Like that's just what happens. I mean, it's the idea that they would be selling this as an idea is fine. It's just their goals are so comically lofty. Like from the beginning, my whole thing has been they have not set achievable goals for themselves. Right? Basically, this offering sheet to me reads like we are eventually going to make a UFO ship that'll get us to the other side of the universe. But until then, we're going to make documentaries for the Sci-Fi Channel. That's crazy. That's just make a company on the entertainment side then. Like, keep the other crap secret, at least. Right? I mean,
or just scale everything way down.
Exactly.
Just manage expectations. Like, you know, like, again, I think it's admirable that this is something somebody wants to do, but you also have to diversify your base. Like if it's only Tom from Blink 182, you've got a huge amount of people that maybe, you know, are interested in entertainment surrounding sci-fi and paranormal, etc., that don't care for him or don't whatever. Like, what is the diversity in your marketplace that's going to help you kind of put a footprint in this versus whatever else is out there? Because you also don't want it to hinge entirely on him. Because like they've said in this, I think the thing that comes out of this document that we're looking at that always makes my whole body just sort of shudder is when they have a going concern statement, right? And a going concern statement is fairly normal, but it's also saying like, hey, look. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, so first off, all that stuff so far has been basically history, right? The news of To the Stars today. So from their founding, they basically released a couple of some compelling, some known hoaxes, unfortunately, videos. You know, kind of some really odd interview style stuff with their plans for these. You know, they're supposedly going to be collecting alien material or stuff from UFOs or stuff people say is from UFOs, and then their plan is to, again, this is like a direct quote from their video, look at it for isotopes and look at it under normal microscopy. So terrifying that is their plan. But whatever, that's fine, right? And it's not my $30 million. But recently what came out was a an SEC filing that they are required to file after that initial public offering kind of deal. That
we're looking in your underwear drawer, basically.
Right. And it was
the man's money. The man now wants you to talk about it.
And so it was grabbed. And Ars Technica posted a story by Eric Berger that says, quote, "All the dumb things, UFO project has 37 million deficit updated." So basically let's just read the quote here. Quote, "The accompanying financial statement have been prepared on a going basis, which contemplates the realization of assets and the satisfaction of liabilities in the normal course of business. The company has incurred losses from operations and has an accumulated deficit at June 30th, 2018 of $37 million. These factors raise doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern," end quote.
Yes. And I want to say, too, that this document is not audited. So this is all self-disclosure from the company itself. You would have like a Price Cooper Waterhouse auditing company actually come in and be like, yes, you're adding this and this together, and that makes sense. Like, there's a whole other step between now and then that's like even more arduous and even more painful as well. This is the company just saying this is where we're at. So this is coming from the board.
Now,
and it's called a going concern statement.
And that probably sounds really bad if you're a listener who is like, oh my God, they have lost $37 million, or they now have a deficit of $37 million. But so the distinction here, Maria, that you're saying, and I think this is important because
it is.
That headline was originally, it's a little bit, it mischaracterizes the situation. But if you go into that $37 million is primarily the amount of money that they have promised to their board members.
Yes. Well, to their company, to their shareholders, to the street, to everybody. So, like I said, think of debt as your credit card debt. Debt is something that you're going to have to pay back, and you may or may not have anything to reflect on it, right? Or anything to show for it. Accumulated deficit, again, it's like we built a company. The company required salaries to pay people. It required places to sit in a business. It required computers. So we had to bring in all this operating expense. This is now money that we have spent. We could go into debt to pay for that, but this is sort of a sunk cost. So it's showing that this is sort of like the total weight or the total value of what this thing is worth.
Okay, so it's
total
almost
sunk cost. Like you would have to, if you decided like I'm gonna stop. I'm Tom DeLonge. I'm gonna stop everything and go back to rock and roll. I would have to sell everything within that, and I would only make less than maybe a sixth. On that. Right?
So basically, what this is then is, since the beginning of this concern, we have spent $37.4 million.
Yes.
That we have not been able to recoup as revenue.
We have $37 million worth of stuff. We're now $37 million. This baby is now $37 million.
Okay, now, and then regardless of how much of that $37 million is debt owed to like a creditor versus how much of it is debt. How much of it is debt owed to themselves? How much of it, and that's the primary portion of it. How much of it is
themselves, which is a little. I would say that too would raise eyebrows. Like debt owed to yourself for a primary shareholder is a little. Again, SEC would probably take pause, but you would at this point need to be showing, hey, we got all this. We got this $37 million baby. But hey, look at this. This is going to bring in money. It's the hugest seller, and it's going to bring in X millions, and they're going to start to recoup.
Well, the thing that's quite frustrating is that if you look at that filing, the vast majority of where they have spent any money is in media, right?
Well, salaries. Did you see the salaries?
Salaries are insane.
The salaries are $5 billion a pop or something.
Salaries are insane. Salaries are insane.
Yeah.
So it's some crazy. It's just.
And media
it seems
too,
like
it's like yeah. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I was just gonna say it's unfortunate. I had really high hopes. It's just been mismanaged from the start, I don't know. Go ahead, Marie.
No, I think I think it's this type of thing is. If you think about it, I know it's hard to look at something like this and almost placate it down to its most boring common denominator, which is like a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, right? I know, but that's not what anybody wants to do, and they want to. I think that's also it's also counterintuitive to what is interesting about this company. But I think the thing is that he's also got to, as someone who has now built this $37 million thing that could and should have some sort of implication to science and to everything else, he's got to be responsible for it. And he's got to make some really hard choices and not tweet about it. That's the thing. It's you got to you have to own the fact that you're not going to get good press. You're going to have to own the fact that things are not always going to go the way you planned.
And well, that you literally cannot talk about it in the media because it will.
You can't.
It could unduly influence stock price.
That's right.
And become a
just ask your
problem.
buddy Elon Musk, man.
Right.
You know who's not talking about stuff? Bigelow. Sorry. I just got cold. I got the chills.
All right.
But yeah, you can't be doing that. And I would like to think hey man, you have a chance to do something more with it, but you've got to bring it together. You got to make it a company that can do something and not what you think would be really cool.
Get rid of all your jabronis. All right, let's end here, Marie. This is good. Good bonus.
Excellent bonus.
I'm only a little mad.
And if you're looking for something to invest in, can we offer you up the Mad Scientist Handy Cleanse Wipes? Handy Cleanse Wipes. Scientifically built to keep you fresher longer with isotopes.
What we're going to do, Marie, is I have actually here written down in crayon cure for cancer. And that's where patented it.
With a solve? Is it a solve?
It's done.
Is it a solve? Oh my God.
TM and everything.
Boom.
All right. Good night, dear listeners. Thank you again, dear listeners, for listening to the Mad Scientist podcast. I have been your host, Chris Cogswell, joined by my co-host,
Marie Mayhew.
If you'd like to contact the show, please send us an email at themadscientistpodcast@gmail.com. That's all one word. You can also follow us on Twitter at Mad Scientist Pod or at Team Giant Squid for Marie. And of course, you can see us on Facebook, on Instagram, and all over the internet as the Mad Scientist Podcast. And again, our logo is the one with the pumpkin head, so it's easy to see. If you've enjoyed the show tonight, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where the money that you give to us will help us to promote this show further, to make it better, and just to spend more time making it.
Because we love doing that.
We do love doing that. Our logo was designed by Carrie Shaheen. Our web design is done by Desdemona Howard.
Woohoo!
And our sound design is done by Jake Cardinal. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you. This has been a Damn It Chippy production.